Healing with Human Connection, where we have encouraging conversations about tough topics such as substance abuse, drug addiction, and mental health issues for those in the Northwest Indiana area. Our hope is to share information that will guide you to resources that can help you change your life so that you can live the life you were meant to live. Check out our website, www.healingwithconnection.com, to find a full transcript of today's conversation, along with a list of any resources or links mentioned in this episode. Enjoy the show.
Hello everyone, welcome. Welcome to Healing with Human Connection, where we bring you information and resources regarding mental health issues and substance abuse issues. I'm Jeanne Ann. I'm a therapist and a certified life coach. I deal with individuals and families regards to couples counseling, relationships, transitions in life, all kinds of stuff. I also see clients in person and online. And our other host is Miss Lisa Scheller. Lisa is a life and health coach, and she and her husband wrote a fabulous book called From Fear to Faith that is about substance abuse and actually recovery with alcoholism, and it is outstanding. Miss Lisa?
Yes, absolutely. So as Jeanne Ann had mentioned, it has to do with, addiction, recovery, and grace, a family's journey. And we just share that, our family went through this, it's a family disease, and how we came out on the other side. And now our ministry is to help others that are going through this and to walk alongside them. And I'm very blessed that, God put this in our walk, and that we get to share that. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Thanks, Lisa. And we are so excited, honestly, Angie, and we know you're so busy. We are so excited to have Miss Angie Deuitch, who is actually running for mayor. But we've known Angie for years, as
Yes.
many people in the community has, because of her all kinds of work, and not only with NIPSCO, and you did for Doombrook, you did our diversity, our
training, and I was on the board years ago.
Yes, oh my
Yes.
God. So Angie, we are just lucky to have Angie in our community. So
Yes.
we're very excited to have you here, Angie. Welcome.
Well, thank you. And I would like to say too, our family, my dad struggled with drug addiction, was a functioning and sometimes non-functioning. His journey, impacted all of us, and it impacted the way where we lived, and impacted, why we are who we are today. And I think people don't empathize enough with the journey that the family endures as well.
Yes.
So I totally understand.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and also being a caregiver, for my dad before
Right.
he passed away. So I get it, and I always share that story with folks because I think people need to understand that it's not something that they're doing alone, and that it doesn't dictate your future walk.
Right.
Yeah.
So I commend you for that.
Thank you for actually talking about that. And same with my father, and that's really why I'm in this line of work now. But it does, it changes us, and we learn from it. And you're, as Angie talked about, very empathetic toward the issue. And the exciting part is, as I'm sure you did, you learned from it and grew, and were a great support to your dad and great support to your family. And now look at you running for mayor.
Hey, it's what it is.
Yay! Yay!
So this is exciting.
Yes, it is. It is.
So why don't you just start out a little bit, Angie, about telling us about you and your background a little bit?
Yeah. So I, born and raised here, in Michigan City, and lived in the Eastport neighborhood. Went to Eastport, Krieger, Elston, and then at one point in time, this is my junior year in high school, my dad was really going through, he was using heroin, and finally decided that he was going to get some help. So he went to rehab here. It was at the old Walters Clinic, that I'll never forget, and he didn't want to stay. And so at this point, I think my mom was finally at a point where, look, I'm the oldest of 7 kids in the home. I'm in high school. She was like, if you're not going to stay, you can't come back. And so he made a decision to do something different. And he got clean. He moved to Florida, where we had family. got his CDL, you know, and went to truck driver school, and then we all followed that Thanksgiving. So he left in March, and we moved the middle of my senior year.
Wow.
And
That's hard for you.
but it changed, but it was for the best. You know, I could, you know, I had an opportunity to stay here and finish school, but being the oldest and kind of like the caregiver for the kids, I felt like, okay, these are my kids. I can't let them go without me.
Right.
So, and it worked out. We all ended up going to college in Florida. You know, my dad, he stayed sober for a while. He worked for JB Hunt. He was a trainer there. You know, me and all my siblings, I have one brother who did career military for 20 years, but all of the girls have master's degrees and the boys have bachelor's degrees. But my dad, no matter what his struggle was, his whole thing, we had two parents in the house. And he was a big advocate of family and in school. And always saying, don't do like dad. You know? Don't be like dad, you know. But he still had all these values that he instilled in us, even when he was down. And so I was the one that would just tell him like it is. So I was not an enabler. I was the straight shooter for him, and just to give it to him, you know. And you know, in the end, you know, I tell the story. My dad for a little while was homeless, and he would stay at the Salvation Army at night, and it was one of those things that was just trying to teach him that, listen, I love you, but I can't have you in the home with my kids and you're using. So we went through that a little bit. I would drop them off every day, pick them up in the morning, you know, and then, you know.
So lovingly, but setting healthy boundaries.
Yes, and you have to set those boundaries. And I don't think that, and there, you know, and me and my dad are a lot alike. So, I mean, he was probably he's one of my best friends. He was one of my best friends. He would talk crazy to me and I just talk crazy to him back. And, you know, before he left, you know, it was one of those things. He had his own apartment. He was doing his own thing, and you know, made amends with, you know, some of our family, and so I had good memories with my dad. So no matter what he was going through, you know, because he always talked to me very honestly and candidly, and a lot of that we tried to hide from the younger kids, because there's a 15-year gap between, so they didn't know a lot of things that were happening, because that was by design to try to hide it. In the end, it always comes out. Right? It does. So I think that kind of built who I am as an individual, as far as services in the community, Salvation Army, you know, being an adopted family, you know, over the years, and I think so servant leadership has probably been a part of our DNA for a long time. And when I moved back here, that was the first thing I did. It was like it'd be 20 years in June.
Wow.
First thing, you know, I reached out to people and I said, hey, how can I help? I do Girl Scouts, I do soccer.
Junior achievement.
You know, everything. So I jumped right in, right when I moved back. I started a Girl Scout troop with one of my third grade teacher, Miss Bachman. So I did a Girl Scout troop at Mullen, and then coached, you know, different sports at Queens, and I did soccer camps in Lakeland at the Martin Luther King Playground, and anything I could do just to jump in and work with young people is kind of what I did. And I think the first board I joined when I moved back was the Hope Center on the west side and CASA. Those are my two very first boards that I was on. So, and then Deuitch. So you know, so I think people know me from those things, and if someone needed help and they call, then I started doing scholarship workshops and, you know, just whatever I could do, because I felt like we had a community member, Becky Williams, who started the whole program. She's the one that had us on Saturdays preparing for the SAT. You know, and she's the one that told me about my school that I graduated from. I would have never known about Florida A&M University without her. So when I told her my dad moved to Florida, she says, oh, you need to look into, and at that time they were number one. Harvard was number two in National Merit Scholars.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, oh, never heard of it,
Wow.
and she's the one that connected me to Florida A&M. So that's what I try to do for students, is just connect them to opportunities and letting them know that, yes, you may have to work and help pay bills, or you may be the oldest child and have more responsibilities, but that does not stop you from having opportunities.
Right.
You know, so that's
awesome.
kind of, what I try to instill in my kids too.
Well, and it sounds like it's a real passion for you, like Lisa, when you've been through something like that with your dad, who such a wonderful person, but had this issue.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that you said that. So sometimes I think we don't realize that really great, wonderful people have addiction issues or
Mm-hmm.
mental health issues.
And he was smart, just a very smart guy. And
Right.
he had,
Well,
many businesses locally, and he was, he had the gift of gab,
Yeah.
So he can meet anybody
Yeah.
and have a conversation.
Right. And you learn from all of that.
And he was one of those ones too. And it's funny now I look back. He was like, why would we try caviar? Different things. It's like, ugh, this is disgusting. But he always wanted us to have, adventurous food eating, things.
Beyond your
Yeah.
comfort level.
Yeah. So that was kind of cool. But and then my mom, being the strong person she is, to have to deal with that. I mean, she had been dealing with my dad since junior high school.
Yeah.
It's hard.
It's a long time.
Yeah.
And so, just understanding the codependency,
Yes.
piece of it too. So,
Right.
it's just a good thing.
Well, it sounds like you learned an awful lot from him. And tell us about your work experience, Angie. I don't know that everyone knows all the cool things you've done.
Yeah, out of college, I worked for the phone company for 10 years, and I did that. I moved to Texas, so I moved 10 times. I moved 5 times in 10 years.
Wow.
So moved to Houston, and then moved to St. Louis. Was there a week, and they told me we were moving to San Antonio, our corporate
Wow.
headquarters.
Wow.
So stayed in San Antonio a year. They told me I was being promoted to St. Louis. Moved back to St. Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And then we purchased a Maritac, and I was moved to Schaumburg. That's how I ended up back here.
Oh, okay.
And family does that. So my daughter was born in 2000, and so a month later, she's a month old. My great aunt, my Aunt Louise, was kind of like our grandmother on my mom's side. So she was here in Michigan City, and we moved her with us to St. Louis. And so I had an 85-year-old and a 1-month-old. Now I'm a caregiver. And, I look back at that. People who take care of people, it's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot.
And,
And balancing everything.
yeah, so she came to live with us, but she wanted to be here in Michigan City. And so once we got her back in her home here, I was living in Hoffman Estates and kind of going back and forth once a month. My brother moved back and stayed with her. And then I was like, okay, we're going to move my office downtown. And that's when we came back to Michigan City in 2003.
Okay.
So, and she lived to be, she passed away before her 95th birthday. So that was a long
That's a
time.
long time.
Yeah.
And that's how my mom moved back too. She moved back about 5 years after, couple of years after we moved back, and to help with her, because it's a full-time gig, and I don't think people know. My mom, she amazing caregiver, and I think that we have to figure out how to do more for people who are caregivers and dealing with this, because it's all mental health.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think when I had my aunt in Sydney, I think about 3 months in, I had a panic attack. I went back to work, about 4 months. I took off for 4 months and was on the highway and just had a panic attack.
Wow.
First time ever anything like that happened to me. And you don't realize how overwhelmed you are with family things. And I mean, just full blown out hyperventilation, on the side of the road. And I think that, even calling EAP and all that was really like interesting, because I felt like I still wasn't being heard.
Yeah.
And so I went a couple of times. It's like, oh, you just got a lot going on. I know that.
Gee
we know
whiz,
that.
thanks. Right.
You know,
But how am I supposed to balance this?
right. So I think we've evolved. Mental health professionals have evolved, especially culturally.
Yeah.
You know, because our family, we have, you know, depression in our family, and people just are willing to talk about it more.
That's right.
So that's a
Right.
good thing.
That's a great thing. So you are really used to balancing a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and given your work and raising your family in the last few years, other work experience included NIPSCO, right?
Right. So I took I took a buyout from the phone company before they became AT&T, and took off about 7 years and full-time work. I had 1,000 jobs.
Yeah,
so
right. That sounds like it.
I had 1,000 jobs before NIPSCO, so I was like, well, I'm gonna coach. I need to be off. So I did tech support for Dwyer Instruments from home.
Oh.
So I was an inside sales engineer. I did that part-time because I'm an electrical engineer. So it kind of just,
Right.
it works out that you can get good jobs when you have an engineering degree.
Yeah.
Right.
So then I was teaching at PNC Trig, and then I was at Ivy Tech, and I taught all different math courses at Ivy Tech, and just did that. Went back and got my master's in public affairs during that time, and then I was on the city council part of that time, and then started law school.
Oh my goodness.
So while in law school, first of all, I love law school. So my first year did really well, and I was on break. And Don Babcock was just, we were on the board together, and he said, "Man, we've been looking for someone," and you know, and the rest is history. I had coffee with his boss. His boss had flew in. I had coffee with his boss on Tuesday. Wednesday met the president of NIPSCO, and Friday they made me an offer, and I hadn't applied for any job.
Oh my gosh.
So it happened that fast,
Right.
and I was with NIPSCO for about 10 years, and I think, you know, and I tell people, NIPSCO was very good to me, and I said, you know, people can bash or whatever, but one thing I will tell
you were
people,
very good for NIPSCO.
well, so that's what I want to get at. They allowed me to do so much in the community, because without an Angie at NIPSCO, we wouldn't have quadrupled our giving in LaPorte County, you know, and I think that's the difference in starting the Energy Academy, kindergarten countdowns, you know, those things that were near and dear to my heart. I was able to kind of like push, you know, into LaPorte County versus other locations, and I said that was a blessing that I even had the opportunity to do that.
Right.
And so so you know, so I always look at it differently when I think about my job opportunities. It always afforded me an opportunity to lift other people up. Even whether it's people I'm mentoring and, you know, at the company, promoting people. I always prided myself in developing people to be leaders, and I think that's where my strength has been, is really managing and developing people as individuals.
And I just have to say, Angie, when I was at Dunebrook as director, you were wonderful. You did that diversity, the conscious bias program for us, and you have and just watching you in the community and leadership roles and meetings and so forth, you have a really great way of bringing all different types in the community together for a purpose.
I think it's the tone in my voice. I think it's my monotonous stuff.
No, not at all. No, your passion for wanting to do good because of whence you've come, and just your personality and your intelligence and your ability to bring people together is truly a gift.
Yeah, thank you.
It really is. And I guess my next question would be, given that, as mayor, what would some of your goals be for Michigan City? You know,
so I have, you know, we created our tagline, Reimagine Michigan City, our people, our place, and our future. And I think, you know, I really, really want, engagement is number one for me.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people who feel like their voices aren't heard or haven't been heard. And I think it's because we haven't given them a platform for that. And I believe that Angie Nelson Deuitch administration will be focused solely on, okay, we know that we have we know what our poverty rate is. We know what our health issues are. The data doesn't lie.
Mm-hmm.
But as a city government, we're so focused on just, siloed approaches and not a holistic approach.
Right.
My example is, people say there aren't good paying jobs. Yes, there are good paying jobs. Everybody's hiring. We have GAFs, the Solairs of the world, all these different groups of companies that are good to Michigan City. Well, okay. But if their shifts are 6 to 6,
Right.
how are people going to get there? Have we looked at transportation and what is the low hanging fruit? If we can't do it as a municipality, can we help a young entrepreneur or a old entrepreneur? Can we help an entrepreneur establish a transport system to work with the manufacturers? These are like simple things, but we need to bullet all priorities and then figure out, okay, what is the holistic approach to supporting that? And of course, housing is a priority, public health and safety. Every mayor should be talking about roads, streets, and sidewalks. So I don't spend a whole lot of time because that's what your job is.
Yeah,
that's your job.
Yep.
But how are you going to get there? And a couple of things that I've shared, we're changing some of the positions in City Hall. Like the Promise Scholarship will now become the Director of Education and Workforce Development. The Director of Human Rights will become the Director of Human Rights and Community Engagement. And putting those things in place so that people have an opportunity to have their voices heard. Our administration, we will do door knocking to check on residents. You have to let them know how to reach you. And I think building trust in the community is probably priority number 1. And then number 2 is all the resources that we've missed out on. We need to make sure that anything that we can leverage dollar-wise to bring resources to the city, that we do that. And we can go into opioids, right? We have money there.
Yes.
And it's sitting, we're sitting on it because I'm sure they don't know what to do with it.
Right.
I have a few ideas for it. I ain't gonna share what it is. That's later. Vote May 2nd. But
there you go.
We have opioid money that we're going to be getting from that settlement that can impact, so many different things. And I was talking to a gentleman that runs a sober living facility. And the residents, they grilled me on why they should vote for me, right? And I just was honest with them. I said, a lot of times we bark at having halfway houses and not in my backyard, but then you look at Valpo, you have Alice House, you have all these different facilities in Valpo.
Right down there by the college.
Right? Higher income, all those things. So why wouldn't we have something?
Doable.
It's doable. It's just a matter of building trust in the community and letting them understand that this is a good thing to help the city, not a stigma.
Right. So it sounds to me like you're much more inclusive and creative, and that would be a good thing. New ideas, get younger people involved, tap the present resources, make sure everyone knows about it. What would you say to old guard who sometimes, I know in Michigan City, having grown up here, sometimes people get afraid of things like that. And you talk about trust. Why should they not be afraid and be okay to trust you given these creative, inclusive ideas?
Because if someone has to be able to verbalize what has happened in Michigan City as far as health outcomes and poverty, it's not working. If poverty keeps increasing, crime keeps increasing,
It
health
affects all of us.
Yes, it's like, okay, it's not working.
Right.
And so we don't share that enough, and we share it in such a negative way. When we talk about, birth rates and things in Michigan City, we have one of the
highest
infant mortality, right? But do people know that?
Right. And what does that mean to the community? Like, people hear those stats and think, oh, that's not
You know what it means? It means that a lot of our kids and a lot of our families gonna have members sitting in the prison.
Right.
That's,
because
that's
ultimately they can't succeed in school and in life.
And we want to catch it early on. So if the city, I feel like our responsibility is to make sure that families are whole, and that families have the best opportunities in the city.
And they have the resources that are out there, but we need to bring those together so that people aren't going here, there, and everywhere to get those resources.
Yeah, because if City Hall becomes a resource center,
yes,
and people have a one-stop shop where they can meet, if they got unemployment issues, if they're looking for a job, but if I got to drive from come to City Hall, now I got to find a ride out to GCS, I got to find a ride out to where I can apply for SNAP, then I got to figure out how I'm going to get my voucher and go here. And so, okay, these are people who need the most resources, but we're making them use the most resources to get
and
there.
Transportation becomes a barrier because we know that people that are in that situation may not have the transportation.
I mean,
when you talk about Balboa, I have some experience in Balboa with this whole, like, what they're using their opioid money for, and the same issues that are going on in Michigan City. But if we're not going to come up with a solution, and we're just going to sit around the table and talk about it and pretend that we don't need to address this or that, the problem is just going to progressively get worse.
And it will. And I don't think we've done enough to talk about it, because that's why, I mean, we didn't have a car growing up. I mean, you know, my mom caught the bus or walked from Comcast Cable over to Eastport from work every day.
Yeah.
Now, who does that? And so that's why, you know, I just think that having the empathy to understand that resources are available, but to also utilize churches and nonprofits. I tell people all the time, it's like, all churches are in every neighborhood, pretty much in Michigan City. We got over 70 churches in the area. If we assist them in providing the resources to those neighborhoods, man,
golden,
that, I mean, I'm thinking to myself, why the city can't do it alone?
Absolutely,
it's a village.
It is.
Well, and that's you bringing everyone together.
Yeah, that's the goal.
Because they trust you.
Yeah, and that's what we're focused on, just building the trust, and then letting people understand that voting is important at the local level more than ever, and understanding that, because a lot of people say, well, my vote doesn't count, you know, at the local, level, it counts the most at the local level, because it's streets, it's sidewalks, it's crime, it's police, it's fire. I mean, everything is impacted at the local level. And so that's always my plea. Look, this is probably one of the most important elections with so much development happening.
So can you talk a little bit about the down and dirty of voting? What do our voters need to know? When is the election? How do they register if they're not registered? How do they get to the poll places if they don't know how?
Well, I can tell you a couple of things. So the election is May 2nd, and I'm just going to take a look so that I don't mess it up.
Okay.
But the last day to register to vote is April 3rd.
Oh, that's next week.
It's next week. It is next week.
That's Monday.
That's Monday. So the last day to vote is April 3rd. And one of the cool things about registering to vote right now is it's so simple. Because all you have to do is go out to indianavoters.in.gov, indianavoters.in.gov, and it takes less than 3 minutes. I kid you not. Online. Yeah. You can take your phone and just pull the link up, and seriously, you go in, as long as you have a Indiana ID or a driver's license. I mean, less than 3 minutes. We had people come into our office last week in 3 minutes tops.
Right.
And they can check their voter registration or vote. I mean, check their voter's registration or sign up to register. And then beginning April 4th, they can start early voting here at 8th and Wabash here in Michigan City. So, and in LaPorte, again, they have their voting location as well. But early voting, we've had very, poor turnout in the primary. And I tell people, yes, we have to register as a party, but local politics has no party. It really doesn't. And this is an important election. So I'm on the Democratic ballot, so they would have to pull the Democratic ballot. But everybody should just vote. I just want people to be registered, and I want them to at least exercise their right to vote, because we just don't see the numbers. And 17-year-olds can vote.
Oh, wow.
So if you turn 18 by the general election in November, you can vote in the primary.
Okay. Wow,
So I'm pushing that with the young people, that get your 17-year-olds registered.
Right. So if you want to have a voice about your neighborhood, about streets, about crime, about resources, that's what Angie is saying. You need to register by next Monday and then vote before May 2nd. And you can early vote at the courthouse.
So here in Michigan City, you can vote at 8th and Wabash at the county.
Okay,
the county,
8th and Wabash.
Yes,
Okay.
8th and Wabash.
Yeah.
And then they'll
that
have
strip mall looking. Yep.
And the 2 Saturdays before the election, so the 22nd and 29th.
Great.
It'll be open from 8 to 3 p.m. on Saturday. So all hours are available. There's no excuse.
And if you go at the good times, there's not a wait.
There's not a wait. You can walk right in and
so it takes all of a few minutes.
And it's easy to do. So that's what we're going to be doing. It's really pushing to get people to come out and vote and increase the turnout. Yeah.
Well, that's wonderful, Angie. Is there anything else, Angie, before we go that you want the voters to know?
I just appreciate you and thanking you. We've done this before.
Yes.
So no, I appreciate the time. I just want people to know who I am, and that in leadership, you have to make hard decisions, but understand that our experiences are super important in leading a city, and what regional cities, our region in general, I've built relationships across the region, and I think that's important as we move Michigan City forward, and LaPorte County for that matter.
Right. I mean, your business background and your educational background is just fabulous.
And community minded, and knowing everything that's going on.
Lisa, did you have anything else about?
No, I just say vote for Angie. She's amazing and doing great things.
Thank you. I appreciate
I've
that.
been a part of that, so I just know that she's going to do great things in the future.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and again, thank you again for sharing about your dad and your family, Angie, for all of you listening. Really, the message for both Lisa's book and Angie's story and my story is you're not alone, and there is help out there. And when you mentioned therapy, there are good therapists and not good therapists. You talked to your dad, you went to, it didn't work out. Keep looking, keep asking.
You have to. And again, and read about them, and get to know them, and know too though that there is a shortage. I mean, we know that my daughter is a licensed social worker in Texas, and it's not a sexy job; it's a passion job. I mean, you have to be passionate about what you do, and we've made it hard for our social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists. We made it hard for them to become clinical. We put people through hoops, and we have to figure out a way to, I sit on the LaPorte County Drug Free Task Force and CATCA and our crisis intervention team, and it's just horrible that we have to push people through hoops, and then they wonder why, and then we don't pay y'all enough. So that's a whole nother thing. But
there is help out there.
There is help.
More help than ever.
And just like a medical doctor, if this one doesn't fit, go and ask and
keep looking. Right. That's what I tell people. My daughter, she's definitely good at that, and identifying people that she feels comfortable with.
Right.
A
good fit. Well, Angie, thank you so much. Lisa, thank you. Cassie, thank you always for the woman behind the scenes. You're welcome. And we wish you all the best, Angie. It's such a delight to hear more about you.
Thank you.
We always end our sessions with saying, be very, very kind to yourself. It's a big world out there. Sometimes life is easy. Sometimes it's rough. Sometimes it's in the middle. But as Angie said, get the help you need, and we wish her the best for the run for mayor, because it sounds like she's going to make help available for all levels in Michigan City, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes.
Have a good week.
Have a good week.
If you enjoyed today's episode, let us know by leaving a comment or review and sharing with a friend. All resources mentioned today and a full transcript of this episode can be found by going to our website, www.healingwithconnection.com. A video of this recording can be found on our YouTube channel, and the audio podcast is available on Spotify, Apple, and Google Podcasts.